Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Wake Forest Summer Immersion Program's Fireside Chat Series. I am so excited to be here today with our academic leaders for the Neuroscience Institute, Dr. Anthony Sali and Dr. Katie Holleran. Hello, you two. Thanks for being
Hi.
here. All
Yes.
right. So we'll start off by learning a little bit more about both of you. So Dr. Sali, let's start with you. Why don't you kick things off by telling us a little bit about yourself and what led you to lead the Neuroscience Institute?
Great. I'm Dr. Sali. I am a vision scientist by training. So my background is in something called cognitive neuroscience. And what that means is that I use several techniques to study how the brain allows us to do things like control our attention and do complex kind of decision making, all of that. And so, what led me to want to do this institute is that there aren't a lot of opportunities. I know when I was younger, when I was in high school, like I wasn't really exposed to neuroscience in any way. And I think what's really cool about this program is that we get to give kind of like a broad overview of a bunch of really interesting topics about the brain and to engage students who are just getting started on the exploration of what they might want to study in the future with these ideas.
Yes, and we are so lucky to have you. And Dr. Holleran, we would love to learn more about you as well. So talk us through your background. Dr. Sali is faculty at Wake Forest undergraduate, and you are faculty at our School of Medicine. And so why don't you talk us through kind of your background as well and how you ended up co-leading with Dr. Sali?
Sure, I'd love to. So I actually what I like about the program a lot is that Dr. Sali and I kind of have diverging interests. So I am a substance abuse or alcohol abuse researcher, and I use techniques called electrophysiology and electrochemistry. Basically, I'm interested in looking at the nitty-gritty of how electrical signals in the brain contribute to behavior. And I've used that to apply to largely alcohol use disorder as my specialty, and how that interacts with stress. So I am faculty at the School of Medicine. And I absolutely adore the Neuroscience Institute. It's my favorite time of the year, if I'm being honest. I think that it is so fun to meet all of the students who are super excited to learn about neuroscience. It was many years ago, but I remember being in their shoes and being so excited to hear about the brain. And as Dr. Sali alluded to, there's just not often very good opportunities to learn about neuroscience, especially from a broad, immersive standpoint, from a lot of people that really roll up their sleeves and get into that science every single day, which is what the students will hear from. But yeah, for me, it's been great to just see young scientists and see them get excited about neuroscience. And that is what has led me to keep coming back to the Neuroscience Institute.
Yeah, and one thing that is just so apparent with both of you is your passion for neuroscience and your passion for kind of paying it forward in terms of allowing high school students to get excited about your field. And we are just so lucky and privileged that two experts like both of you are willing to give your time to the summer immersion program to pass on your love and knowledge in the field of neuroscience. So that kind of leads us to our next question. I'll let you start with this one, Dr. Holleran. So can you just talk us through what can students expect on a typical day in the Neuroscience Institute?
Sure. So I think, so far these students have done tons of coursework in their classes, but that's not what a real neuroscientist does, right? Of course, we still go to lectures, and I think most of us secretly really like to listen to seminars and stuff like that. And there'll be plenty of that. We will have some sort of more course type setups. You guys will have lectures. But what's really cool about the Neuroscience Institute is that you're going to get the experience to dive in like an actual scientist will. So we have every day has multiple different experiments that are really hands-on. And we try to go across a wide range of neuroscience. It's a pretty big field, actually. So we try to make each day kind of have a theme and make sure that you're getting both really cool lectures from really cool experts. We have a lot of guest speakers, as well as experiments that you get to do and some field trips. So that's what a typical day will be, kind of a mix between the two. But make sure to be ready to kind of get your hands dirty with neuroscience if you're doing the institute.
Yeah, great. That is kind of a perfect summation of all that students will be able to do throughout the week. Dr. Sali, would you mind telling, so Dr. Holleran mentioned some of the field trips and some of the experiences. Will you kind of talk us through what those field trips and experiences are?
Yeah, this is really some of my favorite parts of the week. So we start the week off by actually visiting a non-human primate research facility here at Wake Forest, where we learn about kind of the value of that research, and all of the care that goes into doing that work. Uh, then we do lots of other fun demonstrations as well. On that same first day, after we see the non-human primates, we also do sheep brain dissection. So you get to actually hold a brain in your hand and look at the different parts. Throughout the week, there's several other really great opportunities. We'll run an experiment using a mystery drug with some to test the effects on water fleas. And we'll do some experiments on sensation and perception, where we change how your sense of vision works and how your sense of taste works, and see how that is. And then I think the last one I'll mention, we do a fun demo where we get to hook up somebody in our group with an EEG cap, and we record their brain waves, and all get some opportunity to think about how those data are collected and how we set that up.
Yeah, so such a diverse array of experiences with the Neuroscience Institute. I feel like every time I walk in or experience the Neuroscience Institute, it's just something totally different. And so I think Dr. Holleran, you mentioned what a diverse field neuroscience is, and I feel like the students really experience that throughout the week through the different hands-on labs and experiences and field trips. So that's really amazing. Dr. Holleran, would you talk us through the project that the students will be working on throughout the week during the Neuroscience Institute?
Absolutely. So one of the ways that scientists just generally communicate with each other is we go to conferences and we present these posters. And this is always really fun for us as scientists. You get to talk about the most cutting edge information. It's in this beautiful visual format. And it's really just quite conversational. And Dr. Sali actually developed this project for the Neuroscience Institute as a way that the students could say, what is a question that fascinates them the most about neuroscience? So it's pretty casual, I would say. So you have a group of like-minded students. You get to pick kind of a group of, depending on the size of the Neuroscience Institute, a couple to a few students, that throughout the course of the week, we have some time set aside to dive into actual research. You'll be able to read primary literature in whatever topic you find really interesting. And we have had an incredible range of topics that students have dived into. And then the last day of the Neuroscience Institute, we'll have you guys in an auditorium, and you'll get to present to all of your fellow students and to us. And you'll have your classmates ask questions. And now that you'll be, armed with all of this neuroscience knowledge, you'll be really well equipped to kind of discuss all of this stuff. And I think it's cool because it feels like, what an actual scientist would do. So I think it's an awesome kind of capstone to the project. And like I said, you'll have time during the institute, so it's not like you're going to be, swamped with homework or anything like that to do it. But it's a really, really fun project for the students, and people ask really interesting questions. So I learn a lot from it. I really enjoy it.
Yeah, I love the project so much because it allows the students to kind of think, what am I most curious about in this field of neuroscience? And then it really allows them to do the work and do the research. And like you said, kind of test the waters of being a scientist and see what it's like to present to colleagues. So I think it's even though it's a short week, students do a lot, and it's really rewarding for them, I think, to be able to present their findings at the end of the week. So that's always really cool. Okay, there we do have, multiple and diverse array of institutes. So this upcoming summer, we are offering 23 different institutes. And oftentimes, the question that we get time and again from students is, I'm considering both the Psychology Institute, but also the Neuroscience Institute. What are the differences? How are they alike? How can I decide what's a better fit? So Dr. Sali, if you wouldn't mind kind of talking us through, if a student's both considering neuroscience and psychology, what would you say are the biggest differences and how can they decide what a better fit is?
Yeah, that's a really, really great question. So, just to give a bit of perspective, like I'm a neuroscientist, but my appointment is in the psychology department here at Wake Forest. So there definitely is a lot of crosstalk between folks who consider themselves both psychologists and neuroscientists, as well as people who are more firmly on one side or the other. Um, so I think the biggest difference comes down to how we are trying to understand how people behave. Um, so the Psychology Institute is going to explore factors like emotions and focus much more heavily on behavior, right? So how are people thinking and behaving and interacting with their worlds? We're going to touch on some of that, but we're going to go pretty heavy into the biological bases of all of those things. And so like the middle, like there's a lots of gray area in the middle there, right? So while there's some overlap, I think that the two institutes really do complement each other quite nicely.
Yeah, I agree. And as you mentioned, students will get to dissect a brain in the Neuroscience Institute. They will also get to do that in the Psychology Institute. So there is a neuroanatomy day in the Psychology Institute, but as you mentioned, the Neuroscience Institute is much more based on the biology of the brain, whereas the Psychology Institute is much more based on human behavior. Okay, we're going to move a little bit more into the logistics of the Institute. So Dr. Holleran, talk us through so students and families can kind of envision, where does the Neuroscience Institute take place?
Yeah, so this seems like it should be a straightforward question, but we actually try to pack as much sort of field trips as we can into this. So you will have a sort of home base. So we're going to have a classroom. It's actually in the building that Dr. Sali works at, for his real job. Day to day at the undergrad campus. So you'll spend a lot of your time and all of your sort of free time at the undergrad campus. So it's cool because you'll get an experience of living on a college campus and what that's like. And I think that's a kind of fun side aspect to all of these institutes, that it gives that experience. The Neuroscience Institute likes to also expand that out a little bit. So we'll have a couple different places on campus. I mentioned that final project will have in like an auditorium, so it feels a little more spiffy and fancy and official. We also are going to take the students to the center where primate research goes on for the School of Medicine. So they'll be able to see some monkeys out playing and enjoying their time. Everyone really likes that. It's a great time. We also will have a day that we go to the hospital, so kind of the School of Medicine side where I'm from, and talk to some people in the medical field more specifically about their sort of careers. So you'll get to see the sort of hospital side of things a little bit too, although we're not going to, interact with patients or anything like that. But so we really try to pack in a wide array of places that we actually get to go physically to learn as well. But yeah, your main place will be the undergraduate campus at Wake Forest University.
Perfect. Yep. Thanks for sharing that. I think it's always helpful for students to be able to see all of the different resources that Wake Forest offers. And so not only the undergraduate campus, but also Wake Downtown, the School of Medicine, our research institutions. So lots of opportunity for students to kind of test the waters of all of those different areas. The students will be participating in lots of labs, and then they also have their mini research project. So what do students need to bring with them to the Neuroscience Institute? I'll let you answer this one, Dr. Holleran.
Sure. So if we're doing labs, we're going to have sort of lab attire, which sounds very serious, but all it really means is making sure that you have closed-toed shoes. So sneakers are great. There's also some walking involved, so you probably don't want to be in, your 6-inch heels anyway. And usually making sure that you have long pants as well. So there's no risk of anything sort of spilling on you or anything like that, but that is just sort of standard lab attire. Other than that, just be comfortable. It does get hot in North Carolina in July, especially when we're outside looking at the monkeys at the Clarkson campus. So, for that day, I would bring some maybe lighter stuff, t-shirts, and you probably wear shorts, I guess, to that particular event. But just try to be comfortable. I will tell you a secret is that scientists don't tend to dress up very much, honestly. So you'll kind of be matching it with what scientists typically wear. I also will say that just for your attire, some people tend to dress up on the day that they're presenting their poster. As far as what else to bring a really open mind and bring lots of questions. There is nothing that scientists like more than to talk about their science and get really interesting questions. I love when I get a question that I don't know the answer to. That's one of my favorite things. It means I get to go home and look up information. So you don't have to bring much, just an open mind, willingness to learn, and some good questions and closed-toed shoes.
Yes, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And students should also bring a laptop, right, for their
Yes, absolutely.
project.
Thank you.
Okay. And for those students who don't have laptops, we will offer loaner laptops. So don't worry if you don't have a laptop. We have loaner laptops that you can be loaned for the week. Okay. We will continue. Dr. Sali, I'm going to ask you this next question. So how do you think students' experiences in the Neuroscience Institute might connect with their future careers?
So we have students who are interested in all different kinds of things. Every year there are several students who are considering like medical professions, right? So a lot of people study neuroscience on their way to pursuing like a medical degree. And that can be even folks who might not necessarily want to ultimately be in like a field working on the brain, although many of our students are thinking about that in the future. We also have students often who are interested in human behavior and how the brain gives rise to all the interesting things that we do. So maybe somebody who is thinking about a career in like a research kind of field of neuroscience or psychology. And then I think there's also always a lot of students, and this would have been me when I was in high school, who aren't really sure what they want to do, and they just want to learn some interesting stuff. And that is perfectly fine. As I said, there's not many opportunities for students to learn about neuroscience before they get to college. And so I think a big thing that we want to do is just introduce you to all of the possibilities to see if that's something that you might be interested in pursuing in the future.
Yeah, I love that. And that's kind of such a goal for the summer immersion program overall. It's just that students are able to kind of test the waters, experience different things, explore their curiosities without any pressure, without the pressure of grades or homework or anything like that, where they can just kind of have that light bulb go off. Maybe that like neuroscience is it for them, but also it's just as valuable if they realize like, oh, actually neuroscience isn't it for me. It's just, we're really hoping to give students that clarity and that insight, that excitement about learning without the pressure, because we acknowledge that in high school there is a lot of pressure right now. So yeah, I love that answer. It is perfectly okay not to know. This is just a step in the direction of kind of figuring it all out. Dr. Holleran, are there certain skills or insights that you feel like students will really walk away with after this institute?
I think that one of the things that students can walk away with that Dr. Sali really alluded to was that there's a lot that you can do with neuroscience. So I think that this gives students an insight into what sort of careers they could pursue if the brain just fascinates them. It's not all just neurosurgery, which is a fantastic avenue, but a lot of people think if you're interested in neuroscience, you're going to become a neurosurgeon. And there's so many more things that they could do. I also think that it gives students an idea of sort of what research is. A lot of us that are involved in this are active researchers. So just sort of what that looks like and what kind of questions you can ask, as well as just all the cool things that the brain does that students may or may not have known was something that existed, or an area of research that's actively ongoing.
Yeah, I think it's so exciting. I'm sure students are excited about this. I think it's so exciting because the brain is just, there's so much we don't know about it. And so I think that for a high school student who's still so young and has so much more to explore, it's like this really exciting thing that in their lifetimes, so much more can be discovered about the brain. So I think the possibility of that and just being able to start exploring that now is really awesome. Dr. Sali, we talked about lots of guests, experts, and different types of researchers. Talk us through kind of some of those individuals that students will be interacting with throughout the week.
Yeah, we've tried really hard to pick people who have very different kinds of jobs in neuroscience. Again, because we're hoping to kind of show students all the different paths that neuroscience could take you. So we're still finalizing some of who our actual speakers are, but you will definitely hear from a collection of people, some of which are at the medical school doing things ranging from like neuro-oncology to like specialists in migraines. We'll also have folks who are doing just full-time research. So when we go to the non-human primate facility, we'll interact with people who do different kinds of research. Some are doing behavior only, some are doing stuff with more of the biology. We'll also have a chance to interact with some individuals who teach psychology and teach neuroscience, right? So in addition to Dr. Holleran and I, we'll have some other individuals who do that. And like one of my favorite things that we do, we end the week with this panel discussion called like a day in the life of a neuroscientist. And we try our best to have on that panel people from kind of different areas of the discipline, so that we can ask them questions about what it's like to do their job, what they really like about it, what maybe isn't their favorite part of it, and a little bit about their backgrounds that led them to do that.
Yeah, great. Thank you for talking us through kind of that. And one of the biggest goals there too is that hopefully students will be able to really connect with someone who could potentially allow them to kind of connect with, start that networking process, start to feel comfortable going up and shaking someone's hand and saying like, thank you, I really learned something from you today. So that's kind of a professional competency that we want students to start to build that confidence towards. And sometimes it has led to shadowing opportunities for students or, mentorship. So those individuals we're very thankful for those individuals for sharing their time with our students as well. The other thing I wanted to mention was I know for our brain dissection, the students are able to engage with some of Dr. Holleran's grad students and PhD students. As well as undergraduate students. We hire 2 Wake Forest University undergraduate students who are hopefully, in the field of neuroscience, either minoring in neuroscience and interested in neuroscience. So students are also able to see kind of the pathway from being an undergraduate student studying neuroscience to graduate students to PhD students. So they kind of see the full trajectory of the neuroscience pathway throughout the week, which I also think is very valuable. Anything else you all want to add about the students that that high schoolers will engage with?
The only thing I wanted to throw on there, and it's still in flux, but one of the things that we tend to talk about that maybe is unexpected is we have one of the researchers at the School of Medicine is highly involved with policy. So we actually have a little bit of overlap with how things in neuroscience can influence governance. And I think that that is something that, a lot of people may think of science as being in one sort of silo and sort of the active world being in another silo, but they really overlap a lot. So I think that there's a lot of that too, where they could see if they have maybe dual passions, then they could apply them together.
Yeah, that is such a great point. Thank you for bringing that up, Dr. Holleran. That's so great that students also get to see kind of how science is kind of melded in through everything and how our daily life and how society kind of continues to evolve and change. Okay, so this our next portion of the fireside chat is one of my favorite parts because we get to learn more about both of you. And I always like to see if this is something I already know about you or if it's something new that I have learned about you. So I would love, Dr. Sali, will have you start. What is a fun fact or a hidden talent or something that would totally surprise your high school students?
When I was 7 years old, I was in a theater group and we traveled around a bit. And one of the things we did is I was in the Macy's Thanksgiving parade with someone our students probably don't even know, but Sherry Lewis and Lamb Chop. You could ask your parents. But I was on national TV with Sherry Lewis in the parade.
That is not something I knew about you, Dr. Sali. That is amazing. Is there YouTube footage of this?
You have to dig a bit, but yes. Yes, there is.
That is amazing. Okay, Dr. Holleran, I'm not sure if you're going to be able to top
I
that
don't think I'll be
one.
able to top that. Jeez. So I guess like something that a lot of people don't know about me is that I'm actually a black belt in Taekwondo. So don't mess with me. Okay. So I guess that's like one of my hidden talents that you guys will not get to see, unfortunately. And
No.
there is no YouTube footage, so don't even look.
Dr. Sali, did you know that about Dr. Holleran?
I did not. No.
I learned something new about both of you, so that was fun and exciting for me. Okay, so now we're going to dive into our rapid fire questions where I just kind of give you a category and then you say the first thing that comes to mind. So y'all can just kind of, whichever pops into your head first, y'all can kind of both answer simultaneously. So what is your favorite book?
Clara and the Sun for me.
Wait, what was it?
Clara and the Sun.
Oh, I need to look into that.
Me too.
It's about AI.
I think my favorite book is this book called Small Gods by Terry Pratchett.
Great. Add it to our academic leader reading list that I'm compiling after all of these chats. Favorite movie or TV show?
Right now, Severance, 100%. I adore that show. Apple TV.
I was going to say the same thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that is so appropriate.
We'll have to
that
talk
you
about
read the
that.
Neuroscience Institute that is all about the brain and being severed. What are you currently listening to? Either music, podcasts, audiobooks, whatever you want to share.
I'm a big This American Life fan. I listen to that podcast every week.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a new Rainbow Kitten Surprise album that just came out. So I do a lot of that. And I'm like a little bit addicted to TikTok. So I get a ton of music recommendations from TikTok. So lots of things on there as well.
Wow, I love This American Life. And I also love Rainbow Kitten Surprise.
Yes.
So, wow, we just learned something that we all have in common. Favorite food?
Probably sushi for sure.
I will go with any kind of pasta.
Mm-hmm. Love those both. Do either of you have any pets?
I do not.
I do. I have 2 fur pets. I have a dog who is 15 and a half, and I have a cat who is of indeterminate age.
What are your dog and cat's names, Dr. Holleran?
My dog's name is Daisy. And my cat's name is Roland. He was actually named after the Stephen King series, The Gunslinger's main character. So
Oh, that's funny. Favorite hobby?
I play music. I play the saxophone.
yep. And I like to draw and do artwork. So
Both very creative, multifaceted scientists right here. And what is the favorite place you've ever traveled?
So I had a conference in Italy, in Tuscany. It was like in this ancient walled city, and that was super cool. I also have traveled to Seattle a couple times, and I absolutely adore Seattle. So
My favorite is Valencia, Spain.
I love that. Well, thank you for sharing a little bit more about yourselves. We are winding down now. So now we're kind of going to bring it back to the Neuroscience Institute. So, um, Dr. Holleran, if you had to describe the Neuroscience Institute in just 3 words, what would they be?
sure. So I think that it is incredibly engaging. I think that it is really complex because we're talking about the whole brain. And I also think that, I mean, it's just a lot of fun. I feel like we all have a lot of fun on both sides of it. The students tend to have a blast, and we tend to have a blast teaching it. So,
Yeah, I love that. I think energy is contagious, and both of your passion and kind of excitement for the field of neuroscience is just kind of palpable in the room. And all of the students are just always, when they come back to the residence halls, they're just kind of like buzzing about how excited they are about neuroscience. So I just appreciate that a lot. Dr. Sali, finish this sentence. You should experience the Neuroscience Institute if you're someone who blank.
Is curious. Really, I'm excited to work with students who want to know more about the mind and the brain and how it all works.
Yeah, great. Okay, you can both answer this question, but Dr. Holleran, we'll start with you. What is your favorite thing about working with the high school students in the summer immersion program?
yeah, like I said, it's my favorite thing of the year. And it's really just seeing the kind of future of science, which is what a lot of these students will be. I think there's a little bit of selfishness where I see myself when I was like first getting into neuroscience. So it's just really fun to see sort of this passion and flame for learning about neuroscience ignite. And I think that that is my absolute favorite thing, is just kind of seeing the students' enthusiasm.
Yeah, that's great. What about you, Dr. Sali? What is your favorite thing about working with the high schoolers?
Yeah, my answer is really similar. I think it's a lot of fun to get to tell people about these things when they haven't heard about it before. So I think it's just a really exciting to get to be the first to explain how some of these concepts work.
Yeah. Okay, and last but not least, why Wake? Dr. Holleran, we'll start with you.
Sure. So, Wake Forest is a fabulous university. Obviously, there's incredible academics. There's the hospital that's sort of adjacent that, students can work with that. And it also has a budding neuroscience program in the undergraduate, which Dr. Sally will know a lot more about that than I will. But, just North Carolina in general is a great state to live in for people that are coming from out of state. And I think that it's just really a fantastic university, a fantastic city that it's in, and just really good opportunities at the Wake Forest.
Yeah. What about you, Dr. Sali? Why Wake?
Yeah, what led me to Wake and what I think is a real strength for our students is that we um, we have small classes. We have a lot of like one-on-one engagement between faculty and students, but at the same time, we are connected to this world-leading medical center and law school and business school. And so there's a lot of opportunities at Wake for students that you might not find at other good, like small liberal arts colleges. And yet we still have that kind of feel for our students.
Yeah, and I think that kind of shows it's a little bit reflected in this institute because we have you, Dr. Sally, who teaches undergrads, and then we have you, Dr. Holleran, who's associated with the research being done at the medical center. So I think it's really exciting that students kind of get to experience that special part of Wake Forest in this institute with the both of you. Well, that concludes our fireside chat all about the Neuroscience Institute with Dr. Sali and Dr. Holleran. Thank you both so much for joining me today.
Thank
Thank
you.
you
And
for having us.
yeah. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. If you do have any additional questions about the Neuroscience Institute, just email us at summerimmersion@wfu.edu. But otherwise, until next time, thank you.